And so that's what we talked about last week. So tonight, as we finish up the series, as we finish up this idea of friendships, and once again, we all are going to be around people. We all are around people all the time. And so I hate to tell you this, but there's going to be people that you're going to love being around. Then there's going to be people that you absolutely hate being around. Fact of life. That's what's going to happen. And so you have to understand, you have to get this idea through your head that, you know what, people are going to upset you, people are going to, you're going to be able to trust certain people, you're going to be able to not trust other people, and you have to get to the point where you're like, okay, now how can I apply this to my life? How can I take all of my friendships, all of my frustrations, whether you like them or not, and be able to apply it the way that Jesus tells us to? And so that's what we are finishing up this series talking about, is that how do we apply our friendships? And so tonight we're going to talk specifically about David and Jonathan. Before we do that, I need to breathe, okay? So let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this evening. God, I thank you for these students and for the leaders that are in this room. God, as we wrap up this series on friendship, and as you tell us that how we're supposed to act with other people and how we're supposed to show the love of Christ to everyone, God, I pray that right now that you would allow our hearts and our minds to be open for what you have in the story of David and Jonathan tonight. God, I pray that we'd be able to take this and apply it to our lives, and that, God, we can make a real impact for spreading the gospel. As simple as it may sound, through a simple friendship with one another. God, we love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, so now that I had a little breather, so let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a friend that was more like a sibling than a friend? Have you ever had somebody in your life that you're like, you know what, this person is so close to me, I would call them a brother or a sister? Have you ever had that? I will tell you, I had that. I've talked off and on about my friend Mike. Mike was a very close friend of mine. Mike and I were close to the point where either I would stay at his house every weekend or he would stay at mine. And we were so close that his mom was my mom. I called her mom. I called his dad, and we were just that close. We were so close to the point where I knew that I could go up and I could open up the refrigerator and I could take whatever I wanted in the refrigerator. I could go to the cabinets, I could take whatever I wanted out of the cabinets. And he knew the same thing about my family. He knew that he didn't have to knock. He could just walk right into our house and he'd walk in and say, "Hi, Mom," to my mom. That's how close we were. We were friends, but we were also brothers. And our parents expected this. Our parents expected that we were going to be together all the time because we had so much in common. And Mike and I were at that point where we're like, hey, you know what? We didn't have to ask each other anymore, hey, what are you doing tomorrow night? Because we're like, hey, you know what? We're going to go over here, or we're going to go to this sporting event, or we're going to go do that. We just kind of assumed that this is what we were going to do. And Mike and I, we didn't look alike. I was taller than him. He was like 6'2", and I'm taller than him. And but we didn't look alike. He has blonde hair. He has blonde hair. And he's tall. He was in the military. So we don't look alike. But we were always referred to as being brothers because we were that close. Because we were always together. We always were hanging out. And wherever I went, typically Mike came along, or vice versa. And so my question for you tonight to start this out is, do you have a friend like that? Do you have a friend that you can sit here and say, you know what, in 20 years I can look back and say, yep, you know what, Mike was my friend, or so-and-so was my friend. Do you have that person? If you do, I want you to put that person, I want you to think about that person as we go through tonight. And what we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the story of David and Jonathan. And they are a prime example of how friendships last and friendships work in time of stress and difficult situations. And so in Proverbs 18:24, let me start out. Guys, I don't have control of this, so. No, we already did that. I already did that. No. Yeah. There we go. No. There we go. Sorry. Proverbs 18:24. Proverbs says, there are friends who destroy each other, but real friends stick closer than a brother. So you can look at this verse two different ways. You can look at this verse and say, there are friends who destroy each other. How many of you could say that you have friends who destroy you? How many of you could say that you've had friends that, you know what, that didn't work out so well, that you're like, yeah, you know what, you were not good for me? How many of you could say that? Okay? And then you have others where it says, but real friends stick closer than a brother. Real friends stick closer than brother. I'm sure a lot of you can say that you have those close-knit friends. You have the friends that are like really, really close that you're like, you know what, if I'm having issues, if I'm having problems, I know that this friends group is going to be there to help me. This friends group is going to be the one that I can lean on, that I can trust, because they're there whenever I need them. We all have that, hopefully. So we have those two different perspectives. Real friends have a bond that connects them closer than family. Real friends, you can sit here and say, you know what, my inner core is the ones that I can trust fully. The word family is different now, because you have more like friends and friends more like family. What I mean by that is, I was talking to my brother about this here a couple weeks ago, and he said, you have family that we call family that you never see, right? So you have cousins that you say, okay, you know what, growing up we were friends, but now not so much. Now we don't really see each other very much, but they're still family. You have that side, but then you have friends that you could sit here and say, you know what, these people are closer than what my real family is. And so whenever we talk about family reunions, my brother and I were talking about this, and we said, you know, we have family reunions. Family reunions are going to look completely different in 10 years and 20 years because it's changing. Because when I was younger, we had family reunions where all the family came together. Now, that doesn't happen. Now, it's very rare that that happens because family isn't family anymore. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but family isn't family anymore. Friends become family. So instead of making time to go out with your cousins or making time to go out with a certain family member, you make time to go out with your friends, right? Or you have a reunion of your friends. This is what happens, and this is how the culture is changing, is that family is no longer the close-knit group that you're with. Your friends are. And so tonight, that's what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on that very thing, about how close friends can be to the point where they're family. So before we get into this, I want to give you a backstory of David and Jonathan. I want to kind of tell you their background and kind of who they are. Jonathan, first of all, he was the son of King Saul. Saul was the king of Israel, okay? So he's very high up, all right? To be the son of a king, I can only imagine, this guy can have anything he wants. He says it and it happens. So you have Jonathan that's very high up, okay? Then you have David. David is a warrior in the army. He's the one that killed Goliath. We talked about Goliath last year. We talked about Goliath and about how big he was. We talked about how David took him out. And so that's the same guy that we're talking about. So when you talk about David and Jonathan, that's those two. If you recall, Saul became jealous at David. Saul was upset because David had success and he wanted that success. And so therefore all David wanted, or all Saul wanted, was to kill him. He actually plotted to kill him several times because Saul was so enraged and so jealous of David's success. He put bounties on David's head, and David didn't understand it because he was loyal to the king. He was loyal to the king from the very beginning, to the point where he even said, like, I don't want your armies to be destroyed, so let me step in and let me help take out Goliath. So he was willing to do whatever he had to do to make sure that Saul and his army was protected. That's how much he cared for the king. And so that brings us to this next verse in 1 Samuel 20:1-4. It says, David now fled from Naioth to Ramah. and found Jonathan. "What have I done?" he exclaimed. "What is my crime? How have I offended your father that he has so determined to kill me?" "That is not true," Jonathan protested. "You're not going to die. He always tells me everything he's going to do, even the little things. I know my father wouldn't hide something like this from me. It just isn't so." Then David took an oath before Jonathan and said, "Your father knows perfectly well about our friendship. So he has said to himself, 'I won't tell Jonathan. Why should I hurt him?' But I swear to you that I am only a step away from death. I swear it by the Lord and by my own soul. Tell me what I can do to help you," Jonathan exclaimed. So here, let me explain this. Let me break this down for you. David asked again, "What have I done?" David's sitting here saying, "What have I done? What have I done to your dad that he is so enraged with me that he wants to kill me? What have I done? All I have done was just be loyal to him, and he wants to kill me. He has no clue as to how he betrayed the king." It says in there, what have I done? That was the very first thing he asked. Jonathan, the son of the king, made a vow to David that he will not kill him. He claims that his father has no plan, but David knew better. David's sitting there saying, "Wait a minute, no, I know the truth. I know what he's done, I know what he's said, and I know that he's out to kill me." Jonathan's like, "No, that's not true. That's not true." But what I love, the fact that their friendship was so strong that Jonathan was willing to go against his father. Even though he said, "I don't believe that this is true, I'm going to trust you, David. I'm going to trust what you're saying, and what can I do to protect you?" Now, let me just do a disclaimer here. The fact that Jonathan went against his father, I am not telling you to do that to your parents. So I don't want to get emails from your parents saying, "Why did you tell my kid that they should defy me and listen to their friends?" That didn't happen. I have it on camera, on recording back there. Okay, so I'm telling you right now that I am not telling you to defy your parents. Okay, don't be like Jonathan say, "You know what? I'm gonna listen to my friend." Okay. Now, if your friend's gonna go and kill someone, okay, let's not go there. Anyway, Jonathan's last words in this verse was, "Tell me what I can do to help you. Tell me what I can do to help you." That was the last thing he said. Because he knew that their friendship was so strong that he's like, "You know what? I want to support you. I want to make sure you're okay, and I'm willing to do whatever I have to do to make sure that you are protected." He was a true friend. He was a true brother. Maybe not in the physical sense, but in the spiritual sense, he's like, "You know what? This is my brother, and I want to protect him at all cost." So that was what that verse said. Through this interactions, their friendship is coming out in everything that they said, everything that they did, throughout their interactions throughout the Bible. And that's what I love about this, is this story throughout the Bible just talks about their loyalty to each other, talks about how they're committed to each other. Their loyalty went far beyond just their friendship and went to a brotherhood. Their brotherhood was stronger. And in fact, actually, the scholars actually talk about them as being one of the strongest friendships in the Bible, because of their loyalty, because of the fact that they're willing to even die for each other. 1 Samuel 20:17, it says, "And Jonathan made David reaffirm his vows of friendship again. For Jonathan loved David as he loved himself." So some translations actually say that Jonathan loved David more than himself. So the fact that he was saying, "Okay, I'm going to love you more than anything. I'm going to love you even more than myself. I'm going to put your needs above my own." And he did that with King Saul, because can you imagine going against the king, first of all, and going against your father? And he's saying, "Okay, I'm going to love you more than myself. I'm going to vow to you that I'm going to protect you at all cost." I'm going to make sure that you are taken care of and that you are my friend and that you are my brother and that I'm going to protect you. This is the one thing that sets them apart as friends. They loved each other more than themselves. Now listen, I know that for some of you, I know that when I was a teenager, if somebody said, you got to love your friends, some of you are like, okay, I don't like the word love. I don't like the word love. I'm never going to go up to my friends and say, hey, you know what? I love you. It's probably not going to happen. Maybe it will. That's great. So when I read this verse, I thought, you know what? I probably would not use the word love when I'm talking about my best friend, Mike. I would say, okay, I want to replace that word with value. Okay? I value him more than myself. So if you're like, you know what? I don't like that word love. It doesn't fit my personality. That's okay. Let's put the word value in there. I value him more than myself. And so the question comes back, how do we apply this to our lives? How can we apply this to our lives? How can we use this in our everyday application? How can we make sure that we're using this in our life? I believe there's two different ways that we can look at this story. First of all, are you looking at your friendships as valuable? Are you looking at your friendships as being close, as family? Are they valuable to you? Or is it just something else, just like, you know, whatever. I have a friend today, and I'm going to move on from them tomorrow, or I'm going to betray them tomorrow. I'm just going to move on. Which side are you on? Are you going to value them or not? Are you contributing to your friendship? I've had friends that, I use that term loosely, that I call them friends, but they weren't really nice friends to me. They were the ones that would talk about me, that would go behind my back, that would do stupid things, and they would hurt me. Were they contributing to our friendship? No. Were they taking advantage of our friendship? Yes. And if I'm being honest with you, I've done the same thing. And that's where we have to stop and we have to say, am I contributing to this friendship? Do your friends see you as someone that they can trust? If someone's truly looking at you and saying, you're my friend, I'm going to trust you, do they truly mean that? Or is it just something they say? And they're like, yeah, sure, I trust you, but I don't really trust you. I don't fully trust what you're saying. Do your friends see you as someone they can trust? So that's the one view. The second view is your selfishness and pride hurting your friendship? If you look back at this story and we look at Saul, are you the Saul in your friendship? Are you the one that's sitting here saying, you know what, I'm jealous of you? I have pride, and my pride is hurting our friendship? And I sure hope you're not sitting here saying, I want to murder you. I want to kill you. But are you sitting here saying, okay, you know what? I want to do something to get back at you, and I'm okay with that. Or I want to do something and belittle you. Is your selfishness and pride hurting your friendship? Are you looking at your friends with jealousy? Are you the Saul? Are you look at them saying, okay, you know what? They can do something that I can't do, and I'm jealous for that. Are you doing that? Saul and David used to be close. They used to be very close, to the point where Saul would trust David. Saul trusted David so much. And then at one point it flipped. And it actually says in the Bible, it says that after they came back from one of their battles, the women actually started singing. The women started singing to David, and they started praising David. And Saul got upset because like, wait a minute. I'm the king, and you're not singing to me. I'm the king, and you're looking at this guy, and you're saying that he is greater than I am. That is where the jealousy started. And it just compounded from there because Saul was like, wait a minute, this guy is getting all the credit? Why is he getting all the credit whenever I'm sitting here and I'm the king? I'm the one wearing the crown, and you're looking at this guy and saying he's greater than I am? That's where we need to look at it differently. Is jealousy getting in the way of your friendship? Philippians 2:3 says, don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too. That is so easy to read, but it's so hard to apply. I guarantee every one of us can read this and be like, yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm going to do that. It is so hard to apply. Don't be selfish. That's all we are as human beings. Right? Or am I the only one? Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. How many of us want to impress others? How many of us want to stand up here on stage and do something and play the drums or do whatever? You know, you want to impress other people. How many of you want to be the best at a sport? How many of you want to impress the ladies? Or ladies, look the best you can. You want to impress others. But the fact that it says be humble, thinking of others better than yourselves, that is very, very hard to do. Very hard to do. See, this entire series is all geared towards how we should look at friendships. How should we look at friendships, and how can we apply this to our lives? You're going to be around people all your life. And how you treat them determines how they treat you and how they look at you. And so we could sit here and we could say, oh yeah, you know what, we're friends, but you know what, if you're doing all this stuff, if you're backstabbing, if you're being mean to people, guess what? They're going to look at you differently. They're not going to look at you as somebody that they can trust. And let me tell you something. If you're sitting here tonight and you're saying, I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I believe in Jesus Christ, and I want to profess that I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and I want to walk around saying, I'm a Christian, and you are going to treat people mean, if you're going to treat people the way that you would not want them to treat you, how is that looking for you? Are you showing the love of Jesus Christ? Because if we all sit here and we all claim to be Christians, but yet we walk out this door and we treat people with selfishness, we treat people mean, that right there is not showing the love of Christ. That right there is showing that we're good to be Christians at church. We're good to be Christians on Wednesday night or on Sunday morning. But any other time, no, it's fair game. We're going to act the way we want to. So as we wrap up this series tonight, there's 3 things I want you to remember. Be a friend that stands in the gap with your friend's weakness. If you recall, we talked about this first week. In the first week, we talked about the fact that we're supposed to be strong when other people are weak. Be a mentor that helps lead friends to Christ and not away from Him. Help them, guide them. Lastly, be a friend that values one another more than yourselves. Guys, that is so important. Because if we truly stop and we look at other people and say, you know what, we value them and we want them to value me and us, that is where a true friendship can happen. That is where you look at them and say, I can be a brotherhood, I can be a sisterhood, because we're going to look at each other completely different, and we're not going to see each other as enemies. We're not going to see each other as someone that's going to be jealous. We could truly look at them and say, you know what, I value you. I told you about Mike. Mike and I actually stopped communicating for a long time because he was in the military. And so it was hard because he was overseas. And so I didn't know where he was, and so we kind of lost contact. Here about probably a month ago, I reached out to him because Cole, my youngest son, he wants to go in the military. He wants to be in the Air Force. And so I reached out to Mike, sent him a text, and I said, hey, buddy, I would like you to talk to my youngest and tell him about what it's like to be in the military, what it's like to be in the Air Force. And that started a conversation, and we've texted probably every other day since that. It just sparked that conversation. And it's like we never stopped talking. Because even though it's been 20 years since we talked, we're still connected. And there's still that friendship. There's still that loyalty there to each other that I can honestly sit here and say it's still there and still strong because of our friendship. And because I know where he's at in his faith, he knows where I'm at in my faith, and that we have one bond in Jesus Christ. And so I asked him, hey, how's your faith doing? He's like, man, it's so good. Him and his wife are going to a church, and he's involved in the church, and he's like, we're doing great. And we still have that bond. We still have that connection. After all this time. Friends can last a long time. Friends can last a lifetime. They can come and go, yes. But if you truly stop and we treat each other the way that David and Jonathan did, they can last a lifetime. It's all in how you look at it. It's all in how your perspective. What is your perspective in your friendships? God, I thank you for tonight. Thank you for this series. And God, as we apply this to our lives on how we treat others, God, I pray that we'd remember the story of David and Jonathan. God, the loyalty that they had with each other and how we're called to be loyal to one another. God, I thank you for their friendship. And God, I pray that right now that you would show our students someone that they can trust, somebody that they can lean on. God, that they could look at their friends as family and not just their peers. God, I pray that if they don't have that, those close friends, that God, that you would bring them to their lives. God, if they can't trust people, I pray that you'd break that bond. You'd break that barrier that's there. And God, you would allow that bond to come back. God, I pray that you'd open the doors for reconciliation. God, we love you. We thank you for the story. We thank you for the Bible. We thank you for your guidance and your direction. All God's people said, amen. All right, guys. Same rooms as last week, so go ahead and head off.